Pokagon, this nature center, and they're really working very, very hard to preserve what is here. And they're cognizant of that, but they say right now the water in the lakes is in better condition than it's been for years.
Oh, really?
For a while, yeah.
No, why is that?
Well, because they're trying to maintain as far as drainage is concerned, and,
yeah.
even these outboards with all their gas stuff and everything else, they're trying to get in some regulations, and they're watching the lake. They're constantly in this lake. We met them out in Souls Bay, and it's good to know that there are always some people in the state that are working on your lake. And these two fellows were in there that day, and they said
they test the lake.
Yeah, and they were testing the water in that
I must
area.
talk to them about the weeds.
Yeah,
I must
well,
talk to them.
Talk to them. Go over and talk with them about it,
because I remember the weeds, you know, from way back in childhood, how about the weeds were like. And
now there is one.
I like to know them and know what they think about what's happened to the weeds. But as far as development,
Well, sure,
they dug these channels. Now we always thought they dug them in order to make breeding grounds for the fish.
Well, and we
spawning
thought to make
grounds.
a shortcut over into red sand so you could get over into that.
Yeah,
lake.
and then you have to put the bridge in, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But it's supposed to be spawning grounds for the fish. Well, but the fact is that the other sounds you had early was the dredge. There was at least 2 summers when the dredge was, that was probably about the middle of about 25, 26, that, when I was about 4 and 5 years old, and that dredge would be going, digging those channels every day. And, but a very unmodern sound you'd hear in the morning, that coming almost down to the lake, but coming down is probably to the road, because that road was there very early. The road that runs along the other side over there from after Pally, that runs along on that side. That road, but up to that road, straight across, coming down to about where there's a big house up there now, a big fancy, beautiful house up there. From that hillside, coming right down to that bay on the other side of the lake, was just a field with cows.
Yeah.
And in the morning,
Yeah.
those cows would low, and it would come across the lake. And you could hear this cow lowing, and it would just carry, because the lakes carry sound very clearly. And it mixed with all Mr. Dine's alto starting out.
Yeah, and the cows.
And a few things like that, and you hear these cows lowing over there. That was a very, very primitive sound you had to
The
listen.
cows were still over there when I first came up here again in 85. Is that when I came, or in 86 or something, whatever it was. Anyway, they were still across there in that corner lot from Town, and they were when Pa used to play golf at the Lake James Golf Course, over to the right off the first hole, that was all fenced in, and that was that farm over there, and there were always cows over there.
Yeah, but this one came right down to the lake, right down over there by the golf course. Right down there, you could cows are right over there.
There are no cows there anymore.
Oh, no. Oh, I haven't.
sold.
I say that was a long time ago, because they started putting in cottages on the point outside of what my Uncle Will Cruzy used to call George's Bay, which is now where the Docksiders
Yeah,
is.
that was
completely wild. There was one old shack on there. Otherwise, it was completely wild. All lily pads and reeds and reeds and weeds and reeds.
Bob and I used to go in there with the boat. On where Docksiders is this side, and then you go over there, and then those houses are on the corner. And we used to look at that, and we would talk about that land is so low, and that's all swampland, and they'll never be able to build anything there. Period. Now they're cottages.
Yeah.
We didn't have any concept that they could fill that out.
The point on this side of it, it's got a name. You can see that they have a sign up there.
Fikes Point.
That's Fikes Point. That's right. And but just on the other side, because the road was always there. Because that road's been there from way back. That took to all the cottages and Bledsoe's.
Well, yeah. Well, see, that road, that's the old road that goes around all the way.
Well, that's why Town developed, because of the railroad, and that road was there.
Yeah.
And that's also how that whole beautiful side of the second basin got developed, because that's where the road went. Those cottages are old.
Of course, who got all the stones? I got all the stones, and he built the dam. Then the next day we'd go and look to see if our dam was still holding it. And of course, by that time it would have, the water had just washed it all away. He had to start all over again.
We're all that's the history of family. That is the history.
That's part of
Part of it.
so many.
There are so
Yes.
many things about.
You could write little short things about.
I would say that
Did you get a garbage disposal? And I think, kid, I used to go up there and put my bathing suit on and dig a hole and bury that garbage, and all these worms would come out, and then I'd quick run down at the lake so I could drown the worms. And they can't even carry the garbage out of that thing up to this.
Well, we used to say we had a you gotta. There must be something great in this lake country. We have to go somewhere, be in the outdoors, where you can go fishing whenever you want to.
And you see, this was really truly far away. This was far away from the city because people in town made a lot of fun of him. The crazy idea that Weller has, here he is going 50 miles to Lake James. How are they ever going to get there? That's a long piece, from...
His original idea was that all the teachers at St. Paul's School, they had at least 8 of them, maybe sometimes they had 10 of them, that all the teachers would get together, and each one would put in so many $100, and between these 8 teachers, they could surely get enough money together to buy a place up here. And then each one of them could have a week here. I mean, they could stretch the summer out to 8 weeks or 12 weeks. Each one could have a week here. There was only one other teacher who was interested, and that was Teacher Wolf, and those are the 2 that bought it. But his idea was that that all the teachers would go, but they were not. Didn't have this wild vision that he had. He was a wild man. He was an outdoorsman, and
well,
still
he dreamed a lot. He did have a lot of vision, and he saw things that other people didn't see. And then the thing was, he felt so comfortable in the wild. And that was the thing with Mother, what she would say. Well, yes, George, but you feel at home there, I don't know how to, she never heard all these, and she was always petrified some animal would come and, well, George, supposing this or that, Well, heck, there wasn't anything around up here that you had to be afraid of.
I mean, he hunted jackrabbits and that out in Nebraska, and this is tame. This is tame country. Actually, that's I live out in Oregon now, and we have thousands of lakes, but there are and people use them. But if you want to use them, you have to have if you want to fish, you have to have a boat on a trailer and a car that can pull it.
We're here now. Rarely did we have people that lived here all year. Hopkins always lived here until it got so cold she couldn't stand it. And then they moved into the hotel in Angola. And as soon as it got just warm enough that she could stand it, she was back out here at the lake again.
They go to the Henry Hotel. The Henry Hotel in Angola.
And then she'd be back out at the lake. They were probably the most permanent residents around here.
Yeah, they were the only ones that lived here.
And then Craig's were probably the next.
Well, Craig's, I think.
Land now, they're just people all over retired.
Yeah. Well,
I remember from the time I was 16 until quite a bit later, till maybe I was 30, and got into nurses training, was back again. Because during that period of time, I worked all the time.
I know it.
So I had to be at work. I only got 2 weeks of vacation.
That's right.
And everybody else would come to the lake, but I was working. So I was home alone. And I didn't have a car either. I think I was looking out here the other day and I thought, here we got a great big boat. Here we got a pontoon boat, we got a paddle boat, we got a canoe, we got a rowboat. When we didn't even have a boat that floated.